An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? You're stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup, episode 179. I'm Aaron Pellier.
I'm Darlene.
Well, after the disaster that was Dementia 13 last episode, and that's no one's fault. That looked like it was going to be a good. I'm not. Darlene gave me a look, and I'm not blaming her for Dementia 13. I kind of played around with a few ideas, and I found a movie that Darlene immediately said no to.
Its name is The Brain.
And for whatever reason, you have a sticking point with movies that have brain in the title. I don't know why.
Well, there is that one that I drooled on your floor.
Watching MST3K. So we watched The Brain from 1962. And it's a mixed bag, but I'm glad that we did. And so we should probably talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff first.
I didn't look up anything that was behind the scenes.
Well, that's a problem, Darlene. You should have done that, right? It's a British film. That's all I know. It's a British film about an hour and a half long. Okay. This actually has a pretty interesting cast. So let's start with the director. The director we have encountered already. His name is Freddie Francis. He did a lot of horror films in the 50s and 60s. He also has done a movie that we have already reviewed. He was the director of They Came from Beyond Space, which I remember enjoying.
I don't remember it, but
I remember enjoying it.
I'd have to remember because a lot of the names are similar.
Well, remember, it's like that giant tower that is in the center of like a farmhouse after all these meteors crash onto this farm, and like the government seals it off, and people are like going in and becoming possessed after a while and coming back out. I don't know. I thought it was a decent movie. And then like looking him up, I found a couple other films that he did that I thought, boy, we really need to review, like The Deadly Bees and Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. I really want to watch those. And then one of the writers is Robert Banks Stewart, and he stuck out to me because he is a Doctor Who alum. He wrote two stories of Doctor Who in 1975 and 1976. And he came up with the Zygons, which are shape-shifting fungus people that Tom Baker fought against. And they've appeared in the new revived series a couple times, and he's gotten credits for his creation in that as well. So we have some interesting like behind the camera people that are involved in this, but we also have some big names in front of the camera. The biggest name that I can think of, even though he doesn't get top billing, is Bernard Lee. Bernard Lee is the man who originally played M in all those old James Bond movies. I love Bernard Lee as an actor, and he is underutilized in this movie. This is, though, before Bond, really. I mean, I think technically Dr. No came out right before this. I could be wrong. So it's not like he's well known at this point. But I think he's underused because he's a good actor. And then the other person that is a bigger name actress is Anne Haywood, who technically gets top billing in this. Even though I don't really think she should, oddly enough. It's not that her character isn't involved in the plot. She is. It's just there are far more characters that have more screen time than her. Far more screen time. Comments, Darlene.
Yeah, there the females. I had a hard time deciphering which one was which. A lot of times.
You're not alone, Darlene. You are not alone, and it's because at least in my uneducated, inability to recognize fashion, etc., that a lot of them looked like they had the same hairstyles and makeup styles. So the only female character that ever stood out to me is played by Ellen Schweers, because she has a very distinctive look that is a little more sultry than the other actresses, and she plays the assistant to the two doctors at their lab. And believe it or not, I actually think she should have had higher billing than Anne Haywood. But even though it's because Anne Haywood is actually a known actress at this time, and she's kind of a sex symbol, but she's on the screen way less. And in my opinion, Ellen Schweers, who plays Ella, did a lot more in this film, and she's not as well known. Let's put it that way. She's a Polish actress. Well, when she was born, it was Germany. It was a part of Germany, but it's a part of Poland now. So I guess, I don't know, should we consider her a German actress since she was born in? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
Anyway,
know what to call.
so let's get into the plot. The plot is a little more interesting. I actually have 2 pages of notes this time, believe it or not, compared to Dementia 13, which was just confusing to me. So I said that the credits start off strange. Okay? And you said you didn't really understand what they were trying to show.
Yeah, because it looked like torn paper.
It looked like torn paper.
But every once in a while, there was a person there.
Yeah, like a silhouette of a person.
Yeah.
And it turns out that it's like this strange painting of a face.
Oh.
Like a highly stylized face. You didn't get that? It's
No.
like right up on screen at the end of the credits.
Okay. I must have missed it.
And we learned that it is based on the novel called Donovan's Brain. Now, Donovan's Brain has been made into multiple movies all around this same time. But this one's different from the ones that I remember watching already. Okay, so it's been adapted and they're doing their own thing in it, which, all right, fair enough. So we begin the movie actually with a car driving away from, I would say, an upper middle class house. But it turns out this guy is like the guy that's in this car is a man named Mr. Holt. And he is the
Max
wealthiest.
Holt.
He's like the wealthiest person in England. Right? They call him like in a news report, they call him like the 60-second tycoon because he made like millions upon millions of pounds in 60 seconds by negotiating a deal in that 1 minute and having everybody sign.
Yes, there was something about that. I didn't really think it was important to write on the
Okay.
my papers.
Okay.
But you don't even know that he's Max Holt
Not yet.
because all you see is a car. You see somebody pick up the chauffeur, opening up the door, taking a some kind of box, and somebody going into a plane. And that house, by the way, this confused me too, because that house is the mistress's house.
Is it? Is it? I don't know. Is it?
It looked like the same front end as the mistress house when...
Was that a mistake or was it deliberate?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either. But what we also see is, well, it is a fancy car that he gets into. That's fair,
Yes,
right?
it's a Rolls
And then
Royce.
he gets onto a plane, and I guess it's a private plane. I didn't get a clear tail number though. I saw that it started with a G, which means it's a British registered plane. That's it.
It doesn't even get out of England because it crashes in
Sussex.
Sussex.
Yes. So Darlene skipped ahead a scene. Yes,
Because
it gets
there wasn't
blown
much
up.
to say about this other one, where except that he was a bossy.
He's a SOB. He is a very awful person to
Everybody that's in working for him there.
yeah, so you're 2 scenes ahead by saying that the plane explodes. See, the next scene is that we're introduced to 2 scientists, Dr. Corey and Dr. Shears, and their assistant Ella. Okay. Dr. Shears is played by Bernard Lee, and Dr. Corey is played by an actor named Peter Van Eyck, who is known for playing Nazis in World War II films. Because I guess he's German and
His white hair.
his white hair. So they have a monkey's brain in a fish tank. And I use multiple air quotes around monkey's brain because it's clearly just like a balloon with things painted on it.
Yeah, you
It's
noticed
very,
that too.
very, yeah. So,
like with a marker.
so it turns out that this monkey's brain is not giving off very much electrical activity at all, even though they've been keeping it alive for a long time. So they say, well, we need to stimulate it somehow. So let's hook these electrodes up to Ella's brain and get it to wake up. And they do, and nothing happens to Ella. It's just like, oh yeah, the monkey's brain comes back, and then it dies. Like, I guess they were trying to convince us that there might be some sort of like telepathy.
Well, that's something that does come in
Yeah,
play
that does
later.
come into play later. That does. So the plane explodes. We go to the plane explodes, and these scientists are called out to the plane because they're both medical doctors, and they're the closest to this crash site. Right?
That's what was said.
And so they find Mr. Holt, and they decide to take him to their lab, and he dies on the table.
Well, they were going to the hospital, but they're like, he's not going to make it.
Which is actually okay. Like, there's
Let's
medical...
take him to the lab because it's closer.
It's closer, and there's lots of medical equipment there. Yeah, because he has survived a very bad plane crash. And I guess with the descriptions that they said, my impression was that he had lost a lot of blood, that basically his organs were crushed. They were trying to save him. I don't know. So anyway, they bring him back to the lab, and he dies on the table, but he's still showing brain activity. So Dr. Corey decides to pull the classic 1950s, 60s mad scientist thing by saying science is only held back by ethics and morality, and we should use this opportunity to take his brain and prove our theories about keeping brains alive and like some sort of like physical immortality. Okay. Obviously, well, not obviously, I should say Bernard Lee and Ella are both completely horrified by this. Bernard Lee's character is, I thought there would be like a actual schism between them in this film. Like that there would be, Bernard Lee's character would actually be working with the Holt family against Dr. Corey, just because of how like really upset he was at the idea of experimenting on this human
Well,
brain
nobody knows.
without consent as well.
It was without consent. It wasn't that they killed him because it was a dead.
He already died. The ethical question wasn't centered on that. The ethical question was, you're experimenting with a human brain to keep it alive, where the person did not give consent for medical experimentation, number one, on any of their organs after death. Number two, theoretically, with the brain still alive, that person is still alive. You're experimenting on a live...
I think it went dead at one point.
No, it was going dead. And they showed a few times... Well, we'll get to that scene. We'll get to the scene where you think it went dead, because it didn't.
Well,
the brain activity...
Okay,
so the brain activity went down. So we're going to go back to the plot here. The family lawyer comes out to the lab to talk to the 2 scientists, and they learn about how this guy was just absolutely filthy rich. And they go back into the lab after this lawyer leaves, and they're like, okay, Dr. Corey is ecstatic that they've been able to keep the brain alive this long because they've never worked on a human brain before. And this is after the lawyer leaves.
And they weren't having a good thing with monkeys either.
They weren't having a good time with the monkeys either. But Dr. Shears is utterly horrified still because this brain is alive. And if that means that the person, Dr. Holt, Mr. Holt, I should say, Mr. Holt, is still aware, but has no sensory organs. So therefore is basically just in hell.
Yeah, you think about that. You don't have vision, you don't have hearing, you don't have touch, you have
nothing. There's nothing. And there's no like feedback. You don't have a heartbeat, you don't have your breath. It's nothing. And Shears, Dr. Shears with Bernard Lee is correctly horrified by this. And he says, look, we need to end this. We need to end this. And then Dr. Corey comes up with this idea. He's like, no, we don't need to end it. I'm going to hook a light bulb up to this tank that is only activated by like alpha waves, I think he says. And he says, like, when we make alpha waves, it means we're awake. So then he starts like banging on the glass of the fish tank to make the light turn on, which means that like somehow, some way, this brain is aware enough. I don't even know if I can really say that this is Mr. Holt anymore.
This is stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid, but it's also honestly horrifying.
Okay, I hate these movies.
Okay, why?
Because it's
science gone wrong, right?
Basically, and you don't just deal with a brain.
I don't know. It's that they're basically torturing this guy. Well, I shouldn't say they, though. After a little while, you have to admit that.
Except that turn around, Max Holt basically tortures Dr.
Max Holt will torture people later, but it's also that what I'm trying to say is like after a while, you have to admit that Dr. Shears, played by Bernard Lee, is as ethically challenged as his colleague because he's not really. Even though he's incredibly horrified at this point, he doesn't do anything to really stop it. So he's complacent too. Anyway, let's see where I'm at. Okay, so after a little bit,
the funeral man also threatens them.
Jumped ahead.
Well,
you jumped ahead. I got to the point where I saw. So
I'll just shut up and let you do this.
No. So the first thing that we see right after this light bulb incident is that Dr. Corey seems to have this moment of fugue. He completely disassociates from his surroundings and starts doing this automatic writing.
He's right-handed and he writes with left hand.
He writes with his left hand this writing. And
it turns out to be Max Holt's.
Holt's handwriting, yeah.
And it's names.
Yeah, it's just names. And then they immediately start theorizing about telepathy. And I'm like, okay, you're all very poor scientists, Dr. Venkman. This is really awful. Like, obviously there's something strange going on. You're all ethically challenged. But this right after this is when the mortuary worker comes out. Like you were saying, now talk about the mortuary worker.
He tries to bribe them.
No, bribe not. He wants to get a bribe from them.
Blackmail them.
Yeah, he's blackmailing them.
And he later tries to do that with the daughter too.
Okay, but what is he blackmailing? For what reason is he blackmailing?
Well, he knows that there is no brain in that.
That's right. When he did the autopsy, they discovered that there was no brain inside the body.
Which gets me, okay. And since he didn't speak up at this time,
yeah,
he was complicit with what they were doing.
Yes.
So later on, when he tries to blackmail the daughter.
What, Anna?
Anna.
Okay.
He fails at that one too, but it wouldn't have. I would have looked at him as Anna and gone, you know, I'm calling the police because you did, you know,
Yeah, you knew about
you
this, and
tampered with your.
you falsely reported information in your mortuary report, your autopsy, and then you did not report, let's say, desecration of a corpse, because that's how it would have been looked at. Like, obviously, these two scientists desecrated a corpse. Technically, that's what they would have done, and you failed to report it. Therefore, you're complicit in it, especially if they say, "Well, and he was trying to blackmail us." Okay, it doesn't matter if you're trying to blackmail them for doing something illegal. You know that they did something illegal and didn't report it. Therefore, you're complicit.
And then you're trying to blackmail them, which means that you're going to get far more in jail time.
Now, let me say this, folks. There are some. Every character in this movie is bad.
Yes.
But there is one character that did bad things for a good reason. At least a good reason, asterisk. Let's put it that way. They're still bad. They're still an evil person. But
is that the son?
No, that's the daughter. That's Anna.
Oh,
are you going to argue that? We'll get to it, and I'll say this is the good that
okay,
came out
she
of it.
murdered her father.
Yeah. We haven't gotten to that point, but yeah.
Well, this film is
okay. Well, we'll get to it. Yes, she murdered her father. Why did she murder her father?
Because he was trying to. He had a chemical that could cure something. I'm assuming cats.
Yeah, it was a
that
drug
her own mother died from.
Yeah, it was a drug that could cure a disease that millions of people suffer from and die from all over the world. Her father was attempting to basically sell it to the highest bidder and then cover it up, basically. Not let it out to the world, or basically to make as much money off it as possible, where she was like, no, that's wrong. We need to give it to the world freely. This is kind of like, polio vaccine, where we need to give it to the world freely. This just needs to happen, right? And so she does these awful things, which are, you can't argue aren't bad. Like, they are evil. She murders people, but then does this one good thing. Does that
Did she shoot the butler too? Not the butler, the driver.
I don't think she directly shot the driver.
Somebody shot. I never found out who the crap.
I think it was the lawyer.
You think it was the lawyer? So it was them too.
Again, I think basically this whole movie, and I'm going to give the movie credit. Let's finish the plot, and then I'll get to what I'm going to give the movie credit for, because I think it did something right. I think it really did do something right. So we were already talking about this fugue state, and then we already have the mortuary worker trying to blackmail everybody. So finally, Dr. Corey goes in and is introduced to all the children of this Max Holt guy, and it's a nice big boardroom set. It's actually a nice set. But right at the end of it, right behind the desk, is this very strange painting
of
Max Holt, who looks like he's the devil. Well, now it turns out that this was painted by
his son.
Martin Holt. Yeah. Anyway, Martin hates his father.
Deliberately went into art to make his father angry.
And believe it or not, we actually see more of his paintings, and his other paintings are actually awesome.
Well, they're done in the same style.
Yeah, they're done in the same style, but they both of us were like, "Ooh, I'd like to actually own that," because they're like monster paintings. They're like really cool. I was really filled with a lot of joy seeing those. I was like, "Oh, I want to see a movie with that monster in it. I want to see a giant Japanese monster movie."
So this is all you like of the movie?
No, I actually like a few things in this movie. And and at this point, I'm actually not sure if I'm going to recommend it or not. This is what the discussion's about. because I'm on the fence and I'm gonna fall one way or the other. So anyway, Corey brings up the fact that there was probably an explosion on this plane, and
he points in Anne's direction.
yeah. The son Martin's like, oh, you know what? I think it was my sister who murdered him because she had every reason to murder him because she's inheriting everything. Basically, no, she is.
Mm-hmm.
Because Martin is a piece of crap. Actually, you know what, Darlene? It wasn't Anna that murdered the chauffeur. See, now that I'm going through the plot, it wasn't. It was the mistress.
It was the mistress?
Yeah. Okay, so Anna ends up being called out to meet with this mortuary worker, and Corey talks to Holt's lawyer, voicing his thoughts that Holt was killed. We also have a few scenes where Dr. Corey goes into these fugue states, and he basically starts acting like, he becomes Max Holt. And I'm not sure why. Well, I'm going to talk about this out of sequence, I guess, from the plot. What they determine as poor scientists, because they just assume this to be true without actually testing, is that Max Holt has such a strong personality and a strong will that just being next to his brain allows him to possess people.
But he only possesses one person.
Or is this just Corey going crazy?
I have no idea.
Well, yeah, that's the point. Like, how are you testing this? You can't test this. This is all just poor science. So we end up having Corey going back and forth to the boardroom and the lawyer's office. We also have the mortuary worker breaking into the lab in a scene that's interesting.
Yeah, and he gets taken away for burglar being a.
Well, no, he doesn't. The light turns on the fish tank with the brain in it, and he's electrocuted. Remember that? And he's dead on the ground. And yeah, the cops come and they're like, well, he broke in. I guess he was trying to burgle you. And everyone knows, like, that he was in there trying to find the brain, but they can't figure out how he got electrocuted because none of the wires are exposed. Because the brain shocked him to death or something like that. That's really dumb. So we end up having a discussion between Corey and the chauffeur to find out about this. The
last name on the.
Yeah, this list that he wrote has all these names, and the chauffeur has this name. I forget what his name was. I honestly don't remember. I think it was Gabler.
It's Gabler.
So it turns out that I'm going to get this straight. That the chauffeur had been working for Mr. Holt for years.
Yes.
He was getting near retirement. A couple people are near retirement in this.
This was his he was already retired, but Max asked him to take him to the airport.
Yeah.
So he did.
But he gave him a dictaphone machine. And Anna says, well, not Anna, it's the mistress that says, he talks to the mistress at some point. The mistress says Max Holt never used dictaphones. He always dictated everything to his secretary because he hated the machines.
Yeah, that makes sense of him coming from the mistress's house at the beginning.
Yes. But here's the thing. The dictaphone was given to the chauffeur by Anna.
We don't know that.
She's the one that killed her father. That's the whole point of it. And the dictaphone had the bomb in it that blew up the plane.
I missed that part.
Yeah, no, it gets weird. There's a lot of convoluted scenes where it's Dr. Corey talking to people and trying to slowly piece things together. I need to skip ahead because there's lots of these scenes in my notes where it's Corey like going to somebody and then talking in Max's voice for a second and then losing his mind. And
Which I will say that's good acting.
it is good acting. Okay. So then we learn all about the reason why Anna murdered her father, which we already talked about, that basically he was going to charge inordinate amounts of money for this drug that could
Two other pharmacies.
Yeah, pharmaceutical companies. And that basically if he could have cured all these millions of people, because he's had this drug for a while, actually, like just hiding, I guess. And he could have saved like millions of lives, and would save millions of lives if he just like gave it away. And Anna's like, you're stopping people from living just by wanting to make more money. Screw you, I'm going to kill you. And then it turns out like Corey confronts her and she confesses to it all. And then she puts down a gun on the table in front of Corey and says, look, I have a meeting in that room right over there. And it has a whole bunch of doctors and pharmaceutical companies. And I have the inventor of this drug waiting over there. And if you think I've done wrong by killing the man that was trying to profit off people's suffering, then here, you take me prisoner and you turn me into the cops because I've confessed all this to you. She's like, fine, I did it. Or if you don't think I did anything wrong, you let me go to that meeting and give this drug to the world. And remember, at this point, like Corey's been possessed by Max Holt this entire time, and Max Holt's pissed off that he got killed. Right? So Corey just kind of looks at her and lets her walk out of the room to go to the meeting where she actually gives this drug out to all the scientists and pharmaceutical people that are there.
But the brain is taken away from them. Where did it go?
It's killed, right? Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of dies after a little while. So the end. That's it. Like that. It's a weird movie. There's lots of BS about it, but I'm gonna say the few things that I think work in this, because there are more than one thing that works in this movie, and this is why I'm on the fence. I think that the ethical dilemmas in this movie are actually presented fairly well. At least the greater good argument about drugs should be free to the world to prevent suffering and illness, because the right to live is something that is actually like a big deal. I mean, there's a lot of medical people that truly believe, medical researchers that think that, hey, if I discover something like a vaccine, I'm just going to let everyone make it because it should be as available as possible to alleviate suffering.
But they sign contracts that tell them they can't.
Yeah, but I'm saying like there are good people out there. Now, the ethical dilemma here is that Anna murders her own father and two innocent people in the plane. Actually, three innocent people in the plane: the pilot and two secretaries. Correct? And theoretically, through her actions, leads to the death of...
Well, there's another person, too, because there's the person that gives him the call. He first asked... there's three people that we see. There's the steward.
Yeah, the secretary.
The
and
secretary, the guy that is in the male secretary, and the pilot.
Okay. So there's
this guy that this guy, you understand, is very... not so great when he keeps telling this guy to get this. And then he turns around and flips it and goes, give me coffee.
Yeah, I don't want that. Give me coffee. And the poor guy just kind of shrugs and goes, okay, this is the stuff
I will give this is the one where the coffee pot changes to the coffee pot in the lab.
Well, anyway, yeah. There's good segues in
There's
here.
Good segues.
What I'm trying to say is, like, Anna murders innocent people. There's four innocent people on the plane, because you can say Max Holt's an evil bastard anyway, but there's four innocent people on the plane that are innocent of all this. The chauffeur gets killed, okay, because of Anna's actions, and then the mortuary attendant, who, yes, is ethically dubious too, but
I can't say that Tommy's thing is on Anna's shoulder because that's just the mistress murdering. Can you actually um she's responsible for 4 people's death.
Okay. Anna's
She's
responsible
not
for
responsible
5, including her father.
5. She murdered 5 people.
Yes. And she's arguing that the ends justify the means because of greater good. I would say that no, you're an evil person trying to do one good thing to make up for it, and it does
Yes.
not make up for it.
That's what I felt like.
Yes, you are doing one good thing, and we should, celebrate that. But you should also go to jail and suffer punishment for the murder that you did.
And the mistress needed to be put into jail for.
I'm sure she would have been at some point, like, because all this stuff would have come out. Like, this is just like a ball of people trying to kill each
Because the
other.
mistress had somebody that had gloves.
It was the lawyer, right? The lawyer and the chauffeur were working for the mistress at some point. There's lots of scenes of dialogue where
I could not.
People are lying to each other, and yeah, it's really tough to keep track of which is a lie and what's not a lie. That's part of what makes the movie is a strike against the movie. Can I say my other things that I liked about the movie? Because there are things I liked about the movie, many things. Actually. Go ahead.
I said that the transitions were kind of neat.
The scene transitions, yeah,
because there was more than one of them.
Yeah, okay. I like the sets, and because I think all the sets actually look pretty good, but inside that overall, like, I like the sets. I really like those paintings. Yes, I'm gonna say it. I like those paintings, but they're a part of my overall like of the sets because that boardroom set, fantastic. For as often as we see it, which is rarely, well, we see it only in glimpses. Let's say maybe it's probably in 4 scenes, but it's not there for very long. They put money into that set. Or like the lab set is interesting, right? I'll also say of one of the things that I think was worked in this movie, I liked the side characters, the side actors, like the background actors in general. Like Ellen Schweir is playing Ella, who's the lab assistant. I think she was charming and did a very good job with a very limited role. The lawyer, whatever the hell his name is. I actually, even though I'm like, whatever the hell his name is, I don't know. I think he actually did a pretty good job with the role he was given. The mistress is Marion Fain. I think she did a pretty good job. Like, I don't think there's anybody here that did a poor job acting. I think everyone actually did a pretty good job. In fact, I would go so far as to say Peter Van Eyck, who played Dr. Corey / Max Holt, did a very, very good job kind of playing this ethically dubious character that suddenly becomes an evil asshole, basically, evil rich asshole when he's possessed by the brain of Max Holt. Is there anything that that's different from what I've said that you think really works besides the scene transitions?
That I said what I thought was.
Do you agree with my what works? In general,
the scenes didn't stand out.
No,
they don't. They were there. And matter of fact, the lab is actually, I said, this is a dining room kitchen.
Yeah. But I still think it looked good. That's the thing. It was well dressed. It was well put together. It was set up in such a way as to allow the characters to move in it very easily and allow the camera to move in it very easily. So I respect the setup for a lot of the stuff that's in this movie. So what does not work is the misuse of Bernard Lee. Like I said, this is at the early part of his career. That's fair, but this guy is a very good actor. I think there's a misuse of Anne Haywood as Anna Holt. She's not on screen enough, and she is a very good actress. I think there's a misuse of Ellen Schweir's as Ella, because Ella is charming and seemingly has chemistry with everybody she interacts with. That assistant. Do you agree with me on that, at least? I thought that she was actually going to be the lead. If I didn't read all the stuff on this, it was like, okay, the female lead is going to be Ella. No, because she is so charming. You didn't get that.
No.
What doesn't work for you?
Most everything else.
Okay, what describe?
Well, first, I don't think you can leave a brain in a jar.
No, the science is garbage, of course. Come on.
Yeah, the science, this is one of those that having word brain and using a brain just as a brain, the telepathy thing is,
It's but it's interesting.
It would have been better off if they were actually doing something that that they were trying to
yeah
beforehand.
Like they're sitting there like electroshocking the brain like Venkman at the beginning of Ghostbusters, like with the cards. Hey, right? That might have been a little more interesting. Hey, we're trying to explore the
and it would explain okay, we got a brain. Let's see if we can, and then do something to give it sensory.
Yeah.
Instead of just a light bulb.
Yes. See, I think there would have been a more interesting movie, but okay, you wouldn't have been able to call it The Brain. Let's put it that way. But it would have been a more interesting movie if you have Max Holt dying in the plane wreck, right? But his body's there. They have him on all these machines just to keep the blood circulating and the blood oxygenated. And his brain is still in there. It's the only functioning organ. So he's just like this body that is riddled with tubes and wires and things like that, and they're keeping him alive, but like maybe he speaks through like an oscilloscope or something like that, and he's able to like take control of people through this, like you give some sort of other pseudoscientific explanation, but like the brain in a jar with a light bulb, that's a little too weird, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else doesn't work, Darlene?
The whole plot of scrambling around, it just seemed like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth,
You're
back
right.
and forth.
You're right. There are an inordinate amount of
circles
of useless, pointless scene transitions. Well, scene switches where it's Corey going someplace, Corey going someplace else, Corey going someplace, and they even remark on that in the film. Like they tell Dr. Corey at one point, you might be like the newest member of the board of trustees for this company. You've been here so many times over the past few days, or you're a member of the family now. Like that's what it seems like. He's always there, but he's always leaving and then coming back, and that's garbage. That's garbage. Like, tighten it up. I'm not saying like this movie needs to be shorter. I'm saying like there needed to be a little more smarter. It needed to be smarter with its writing, with how its scenes are set up. That's all. That's all I'm saying. In agreement with you, in general agreement with you. Anything else that you can think of that does not work, or just general thoughts?
I think it would have been better with a car crash, and
Okay.
the doctors that are these two doctors, and the one gets possessed is his doctors, and they fight with the lawyer of keeping him alive.
Oh, okay. Maybe because the daughter wants to take him off life support or something like that.
Yes.
Oh, you see that would have been interesting
and
too.
He's always had this tiny ability to manipulate people through telepathy. And these doctors were actually working with him on this.
He doesn't have telepathy. He's always had what the family considers an ability to like mesmerize people. That's why he's been such a good businessman, is that he can seemingly get in people's heads just by like being there. Okay, so he's a little bit like the master that way. Like he just kind of go, you will obey me. But his mind is powerful enough. And that like just being near him still, like on the life support or whatever, is enough for him to get into your head and control you. Like, yes, see, I'm not saying we should remake this movie. I'm saying like with a couple tweaks, this movie could actually be really sinister.
But it was really boring.
It was fairly boring. And here's my problem. There are a lot of things in this that I liked, but there's just as many things as I didn't like. And if I had to fall on one side of the fence, it would be to not recommend this.
But I've already been on that.
Yeah, you're solid. Like, I'm not going to recommend it. I think there are interesting things in this. There is really good acting. There's really good set design. There's
really good transitions.
There's really good transitions. There's really good ideas at the core of this. I really like this idea of like two different ethical dilemmas occurring. They're just not doing it properly. Or, well, I shouldn't say they're not doing it properly. They're not doing it effectively.
Because she still doesn't get anything done to her.
No.
And
that's what the last scene should have been, is her being led out of that meeting in handcuffs. And then that would have been like, okay, that's a little more satisfying at the end, because she did murder people. Like, you can do this good thing. That's fine. Do this one good thing. I get it that you wanted to do this. You're still a bad person for murdering people. Like that.
And the lawyer would have been taken too.
Yeah.
So the only person that would be in charge of the company would be the son that would just close it down.
Would just likely close it down. You know, I would say that this movie, with just a couple tweaks, could easily go up from for me, a light non-recommendation to like a solid recommendation, like with just a couple tweaks. And I'm getting the impression that with those same couple tweaks, it would go from a strong not recommendation to a recommendation with you as well, right? Like, it's just that the plot. I
don't know.
Do you think that the plot is the thing that truly drags this movie down? It's not the pacing.
It's the pacing, and
it's the switching between scenes
all the time. It's the dragging out with too much round and around we go with a merry-go-round.
Yeah, with him talking to the same people over and over again, like slightly out of order. It's hard to keep track of all the little lies that people are telling.
And it would have been great to have this as not as the doctor, but as an investigator from. This is in England, right?
Yeah, just
MI5.
Yeah, because this guy was like he was a foreign businessman that became a British citizen before World War II. That's what his background. See, that I can just pop that off the top of my head. There's interesting things in this movie. That's the point. That, yeah, okay, you have like MI5 or whatever that they're saying, okay, this super rich businessman.
And you could have 3 doggone ethical dilemmas here.
Yeah.
You can have the them wanting to keep him alive, and Anna wants to take him off of life support. You could have her last thing of the reason why she wants him off of life support, so she can give this thing all to the world.
Yeah.
And you could probably have another one thrown in there to like keep everything off balance, because maybe Dr. Corey wants to hook up the brain.
No. How about this? The investigator, because we're just making up another character here. How about the investigator has been romantically involved with Anna Holt prior, and he's kept it quiet. She's keeping it quiet, but obviously he has interests in this.
And the last one would be the company could be detrimental. If it fell down, the government would not want to have it lose that.
Yeah, it's
company.
too big. It's too big to fail. That kind of thing. There's lots of cool things you can add into this, and I'm not gonna disparage the writers, because I know that the writers can write some fun stuff. We have watched some of their things that they've written. I'm just not sure that this works well in today's setting, in today's world. But if I'm judging it for the time, I would think that it works better in the 1960s. You're quiet and kind of looking, but do you agree with that? Maybe a little?
No.
I
still think that I would have fallen asleep in it.
Okay, that's fair. So this is for both of us kind of a not recommendation, but it's an interesting film in some strange ways. It's not like I hated this film. You didn't hate this film, did you?
No, I didn't hate this film.
Yeah, okay. So this is just I guess I would recommend it if you want to watch Bernard Lee in a non-M role. Like, okay, he's pretty good. I think Peter Van Eyck playing a non-Nazi it's interesting in this. It's not bad. We got it for free on Amazon Prime, right? No, we didn't. We watched this on Tubi.
We watched it on Tubi.
For free.
And I gotta say, Peter Corey is a good actor because he was actually doing
Peter Van Eyck, you mean?
Peter Van Eyck, who played Peter Corey.
Yeah.
Did an excellent job with switching. You actually knew when he was Max.
Yes, because he put on a different accent.
His shoulders came back. And
he gestured very sharply.
Yes.
And
he spoke very
crisply and sternly.
Kind of angrily.
Yeah, yeah. Because Holt always spoke with he was a son of a bitch. That's basically what this guy was.
Did you ever see Max? Because I don't remember.
No, you never saw his face except in that weird ass painting. That's kind of the point, because I think they just had him sit there for the role, just not facing the camera, kind of like Blofeld. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed listening. So I already know what we're going to watch next week.
Oh, can we actually?
No. I know what we're going to watch next week. I'm just going to get my my notes out. Darlene's already like, oh, no, because we're watching Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Oh.
From 1964 for next week with our guest host, Chuck.
Yep.
So we hope you enjoyed listening. I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.